draft 5 of this and I haven't memorised it, so I'm going to look slightly unprofessional, but you know, sod it. My original plan though anyway was to actually come out with like a black leather jacket and some shades and playing back to the burning by George with Destroyers, but thankfully I relented, but mostly because I thought Jake would have a go at me for not wearing a tie. So I know what he's like with ties. It's pretty pro tie. My original plan as well, as you see, it says when bad guys are good, was to look at my experience of playing as the bad guy or an anti-hero. So I thought it would go well with the theme of Dungeon Keeper, so I might have taken slightly too literally. But although I have to say it has been interesting to find the differences between the literal interpretation of an anti-hero and what we consider in a modern entertainment context to be an anti-hero. But before I look at any of these kind of characters that we all know and love, or like, I think I should share with you some games that inspired me to talk about this in the first place. And where it began, back in 1994, I had my first PC, a slightly rescued and rebuilt IBM 386 with a floppy disk drive. Might be new to some people, I hope not. Moving on from the fairly linear design of the time of console games that were available on my local Blockbuster video, and the growing impatience at my Spectrum's ever-failing keyboard, I found that many games I just could not stop playing. I just loved them. X-Wing was one of them, of course, but it was TIE Fighter. That was the first that really gripped me. And so here I was, an aimless pawn in the story arc of my then favourite trilogy. I was a nameless, faceless piece of cannon fodder who rose above it to see this fictional conflict from another viewpoint. I was shieldless and ballsy, shooting rebel craft into polygons and leaving nothing but waste for the vacuum of space. But for years, I had a very binary notion of what good and evil was, partly through this and through watching movies like this. The rebels and the Imperials, by their nature, sound as they should, which when you think about it is eloquently designed to engender empathy for the side of the fictional protagonist. The Imperials just sounds nasty, just sounds evil. So I imagine George Orwell would probably have quite a feel better Star Wars in that regard. But in a stage rate, because the game was designed to be harder, TIE Fighter compared to X-Wing, to reflect that almost Japanese World War II dogfighting kamikaze dynamic, I became more attuned to the Imperials. I felt a little bit more for their plight. There was more to lose, more to prove, and therefore more to gain than success in a way. And then there's Dungeon Keeper. What game Dungeon Keeper? I love it. The magnificent Richard Ridings, whose voice I first heard introducing the polymorph from Red Dwarf. His voice exudes the most deliciously evil tone. It oozed out of my Packard Bell speakers back in 1997. And it's at this point that most of you probably decided to put the word ooze in the same category as moist for your for those of you that only know the freemium travesty, Dungeon Keeper was one of the pre-Milo Molyneux games that followed an isometric building/strategy formula that his Bullfrog studio made famous with Theme Park and Theme Hospital. Of course, everybody liked to subvert convention. The idea for this building game was to construct dungeons and attract minions in your quest to take over the land, a land of fantasy prospered above you. On the surface, where you build your halls, libraries, training rooms, treasuries, and chicken pens. You all love the chickens. Your roots would dig out the rooms, mine for gold, and take over areas, digging fast with a gentle slap at the god hand cursor, which also then appeared in black and white, I suddenly realised. You could then possess any of your minions, including the rather bemused chickens, and run around preparing for when the knights of that realm decided to come down and challenge you, and eventually lose to your never-ending wave of corruption, destroying the entire kingdom before it. Basically, whilst being a good strategy game, it was the first one that I played that actually celebrated you being a complete and total bastard. Which I love. But as 13-year-old boy at the time, I never really questioned it. But as a man, well and truly fixing his early 20s, please don't correct my maths, I've become more fascinated as to why I enjoy this subversive frivolity. Here is Terry Eagleton. Terry Eagleton is a renowned literary critic and theorist, and writing for The Independent, whilst promoting a book he had written on evil a few years ago, he said this: "When did evil start to look alluring, or so alluring? One answer might be, when goodness began to look boring. We can blame this on the puritanical middle classes. If it is they who redefined virtue as thrift, prudence, meekness, abstinence, chastity, and industriousness. It's not hard to see why some people should prefer zombies and vampires. Goodness came to seem negative and restrictive. As the poet W.H. Auden Riley remarked, the Ten Commandments consist of observing human behaviour and then inserting a knot. So in this aspect, I enjoy playing evil games and being evil because I've been surrounded by so much so successful middle-class driven virtue that I am instinctively programmed to seek the antithesis of this. I also worked in telesales for 7 years, but I'm pretty sure it's got nothing to do with it. Eagleton is, of course, referring to something more classic with his words, and the rise of the Gothic and more fantastical strands of literature over the course of the Victorian era and beyond. But all of this leads to the conclusion of escapism, which, of course, is a default explanation for anything that doesn't involve you just being happy with your below-inflation office employment and the ever-retracting welfare support system you've been forced to rely on. So, politics. Escapism. Definition: the tendency to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy. Well, fantasy. Shadow of the Colossus is in the fantasy setting. I'm not going to go into it too much because there are many people here that are much better qualified to wax lyrical about this game, but escapism certainly is a subjective experience here. Playing as Wanda, the protagonist, inverted commas, depending on your viewpoint, you go on a heroic quest to destroy the Colossi in order to save Mono, but as you progress you realise this comes at a cost, with your own soul, your own soul becoming more and more corrupted and the destruction of nature by your hand changing the balance of the entire realm. Now, we have here, some empathy with Wanda, because even though the reasons are presumably selfish, we can understand at a human level the need to save and not lose what we love. We understand the avoidance of grief and the extension of comfort. To us, Wanda is doing all the wrong things for the right reasons. Now, you think right now I'm probably going to go straight to anti-heroes, but I'm actually going to disqualify some characters that first, before we go into that, because there is a definite separation between an anti-hero and a hateful character. So here you can see we have Trevor and Michael from Grand Theft Auto 5, and in fact, pretty much any of the main characters from the Grand Theft Auto series of games. It may seem like a strong word, hateful, but that is what they are. We should hate their guts for the pain and torment they blissfully put others through in the process of fulfilling their narrative agenda. Trevor, for example, needlessly tortures a man, so you can't get more hateful than that. Surely. We should be totally disgusted by this. But, in a weird way, we aren't. And for an explanation of this, I'm turning to Ken Levine. Actually, it's not going to be that Ken Levine of Bioshock fame, although I will point out that he did say to IGN earlier this year something interesting about characters in games, which is, to make an interesting character, you have to have a character who has a bunch of passions, wants and needs. And Levine says characters' wants and needs are at the heart of who they are. It's not their skin colour, their religion, not their sex, it's what they want, what they need, and what's in their way. But actually, I mean this Ken Levine, who is actually a TV critic. And both Ken Levines basically echo exactly the same statement. Ken Levine is an Emmy Award-winning TV writer, producer, director, who's worked on everything from MASH to Cheers to The Simpsons. And hateful or evil characters are quite hard to sell in TV, because obviously you hate them, so they kind of alienate you as a viewer. The most recent example of this probably in games is probably Watch Dogs Aiden Pierce. Maybe slightly controversial, I don't know. Whilst he's not really that hateful, he's not exactly likeable. So why do we tend to make hateful characters? Because they're interesting. Evil characters create drama and suspense, they stir up the pot, they surprise us, they make choices that we wouldn't make, and they say things we'd like to say. They cut through the bullshit. Their worldview is different, it's fun to watch them operate, and sometimes you actually root for them, and other times you can't wait for them to get theirs. And on certain occasions, you do both, and seriously, who holds their interests more? Anna from Downton Abbey or Claire from House of Cards? As it's up to you to decide. So this is where we start differentiating the anti-hero from these other more, supposedly psychotic characters. Looking at this on Psychology Today, which is, I know, pretty bad, I found this post by a guy called H. Eric Bender, MD, trying to define an anti-hero as a more morally ambiguous character who did the right thing despite their, this is a quote from him, antisocial behaviour. It might be because their moral complexity more closely mirrors our own. They're flawed, they're still developing, learning, growing, and somewhere in the end they tend towards heroism, or trend towards heroism. We root for their redemption and wring our hands when they pay for their mistakes. They surprise us, they disappoint us, and they're anything but predictable. Whilst the anti-hero's incompatibility with societal rules lays the foundation for compelling drama, it is their unlikely virtue in the face of relatable circumstances that emotionally connects us to them. He gives a couple of examples of this. One of them obviously being Walter White from Breaking Bad, who's dealing with the healthcare system and his own problems facing his family, and Tony Soprano with his own problems with anxiety. So, let's have a few video game characters of that. Probably people that we would most associate as being anti-heroes. Got Alan Wake, Joel from The Last of Us, John Marston from Red Dead Redemption. Then of course, there's characters you can kind of make, like in Fallout, the version of Shepard, which you play in Mass Effect, whichever one that you do and however you play it. Bring that even further to Skyrim, to Telltale's Walking Dead with their choice-based system, and even the Fire and Dare Fable. Again, going all the way full circle to Molyneux, which is not something I ever thought I'd say. And even right now, Halo's Master Chief, who is currently suddenly becoming an anti-hero, trying to save the human race against what the human race wants. It seems to be in vogue, doesn't it? Our relationship to anti-heroes is based very much, of course, on our own limitations of what we can do and what we want to do. Anything from revenge to redemption, restitution to reconciliation, revelation to retirement. And I think that's something we can all agree on, right? We can all agree these are anti-heroes. We kind of live through them. Kind of makes sense, yeah? Hope I'm not. Yeah. Well, no.
What?
Because I wasn't happy with this, because you know, you've been to university and you look at things like Psychology Today and you put it in your Harvard referencing and your tutor goes, did you just link to that off Wikipedia, didn't you, from the proper thing and just put it on? It's not going to cut it. So, I wanted something more definitive. My degree was English Literature and Creative Writing, hence being a games journalist, this seems to be what we do. So I wanted to find something more concrete, and I took to my bookshelf and I found my copy of the Literary Terms on Literary Theory dictionary. If you want to see what it says about an anti-hero, a non-hero, the antithesis of a hero of the old-fashioned kind, who was capable of heroic deeds, who was dashing, strong, brave, and resourceful. The anti-hero is the man, this is the quote from him, who is given the vocation of failure. Doesn't sound very good. The anti-hero, a type who is incompetent, unlucky, tactless, clumsy, cat-handed, stupid, buffoonish, is of ancient lineage. And he then goes on to describe some examples, highlighting Greek New Comedy, Don Quixote, Tristram Shandy, and even Leopold Bloom from James Joyce's Ulysses. Which made me think that the definition in a modern sense, especially across all other entertainment, is kind of changed. It's kind of evolved. Or at least how we see him anyway. But if we were to literally put some of these traits into a modern game character, someone who's unlucky, someone who's clumsy, the definition of tactless is meaning showing a lack of skill and sensitivity in dealing with others or with difficult issues, then we've already seen her tonight, but I think we might have our classic anti-hero. Max Caulfield. Max was a troubled teenager struggling to come to terms with her newfound independence, trying to impress everybody among her new faces in her life in a place that she no longer knows, but without the fallback of other figures to guide her or correct her path. It's left up to her own judgment that, once gifted with power, proves to be both naive and brave. Her selfless actions also reveal her selflessness. So in a way, she is kind of that anti-hero that is classically there, and also kind of an anti-hero that we know. And of course the thing is though, with these characters and these games, especially now in our current era of entertainment, character and game design, it's impossible to have such a complete and binary explanation of what an anti-hero or a bad person is when you play them. Everything is so subjective, and so fluid that there is no definitive list that says what the characters are, which can only lead me to conclude one thing, which is the terribly cheesy notion that these characters are us. Because of the way we play them and how we project not only our desires but our fears too. The things that scare us, the things that make us jump, and by extension, make our characters jump too, even if they don't actually jump physically. We're all our own anti-heroes, only because we're all so different. Which only tells me something that I already knew from the start, which is that I am a complete and total bastard. Thank you for listening.